All right, you groovy grasshoppers from all the millions of universes out there, all the hockey players that are living in Uranus and Mars and everything. This is Gary Dorkowitz, fantastic human being, does a lot of stuff for kids over all over the place, but Rockland County, coaches the Rockland County High School hockey. Is that correct, Rockland County?
Well, we're at North Rockland High School, but you're close.
Yeah, I just think you're so good that you do the whole Rockland thing.
Just mesmerize you.
You won a championship 2 or 3 years ago, didn't you?
We won a section championship a couple of years back. Yeah, it was like a life endeavor for our program.
Nice.
We're pretty grassroots, you know.
Yeah. So Gary again does a lot of stuff for kids. A fantastic program. Was it the one where it was with you in the schools? Was that Learn to Play?
So what we did is we did this initiative with the help from our friends over at the Rangers and in the NHL. And we did a try hockey for free for students grades 1st through 6th grade in our school district. I'm giving kids an opportunity to do something that they might. It's crazy that they've never had an opportunity on them to do it.
It's great. So we had, I guess, you got a little chalk talk at the schools, and we're using the hockey things you learn from hockey, how to help kids fight through things. And so it's a great program. It's probably a part of that. Good job, buddy. That's excellent.
Yeah, thank you. It was really, it was really just a pretty simple message. And the message was, if you fall down, get back up and move forward. And we're utilizing it now with other things that come up in a student's day, whether you're struggling with reading or math.
Yeah, we're on the ice together for one Learn to Play programs and the Sportorama last week, and it was great to watch the kids. A lot of kids that can't stand up at all, so you got those little kind of sleds or whatever they can lean on, and so they're out there for about half an hour, and they're on their own. They're taking the sleds and pushing them away. Now they feel confident, so it's a good thing, like you said, for life. Realizing that just because you can't do something right now doesn't mean we'll be able to do it later on. So
yeah, I think sometimes you can start getting involved with something, and then after a period of time, sometimes it turns into something else, and you kind of forget what the roots of what you were doing in the first place. When you do those try hockey for frees and kids are getting out there for the first time and doing that stuff, it reminds you of why you got involved with that stuff.
Who's Dennis? Dennis or Denis? Is that a friend of yours?
It could be Dennis. If it's the same Dennis was a guy who gets involved, and he was a big part of our structure over there at Sportorama. Like that school program we did was the first of its kind. No one had done it before. Cool. So I'm pretty sure it's our Dennis, and he was great for organization because we had like a few different pieces of it. We had a classroom, we had the introduction into the rink, and we had stations like teaching kids how to get up when they fall down. But Dennis is a good guy. There he is. Yeah. So
this is a different Dennis then.
Oh, it's a different Dennis, but he knows that Dennis though.
That's what he does. Okay. So here's our veteran up in Buffalo, New York. Ron Jameson, a loyal listener. Zamboni driver up there too. A veteran was in the Navy. I can't remember which he was, but he'll tell us again. William Hayes, another veteran over in Chicago. He's a trained conductor. All right. So we got Dennis, Ira Matthew. Ira Matthew is our loyal bad speller.
This is the guy you make fun of for the spelling?
Yes. We don't know whether he does it on purpose or not, but he has a hard time with I think he gets excited when he writes things down. He's a good guy, though. All right. So we're going to do the show, Gary and I, probably once a month. No, once a month. So every 4 weeks here at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. And it's primarily coaching, hockey, and what you can do to – Gary and I believe the same things, that it isn't just coaching to win the hockey games. Yes, you want to win. The process of winning is important, but it's helping build people too, so that they get, at the end of the year. And I'm a big believer, and I've learned this. I don't know if I was always like this, but I think it is important to win. Sometimes there's a debate in coaching: is it about getting everybody playing time, or is it about winning? But I think the process that goes into winning, at the end of the year, is really important. So you're trying to get the most out of each player, every game, give everybody opportunities to win. Obviously, those key situations, you put the guys that you need to win out there. But again, build everybody so when it comes to the championship at the end of the year, all the players in the team are confident, better athletes. I think you agree with that, right?
Yeah, 100%. Now, to add a little quick piece to yours also too is like good healthy habits for youth players and things that are good for development, and also identifying like the different stages of development and hopefully passing some information that could help people, during those different stages.
One of the key topics, we've talked this many times. A lot of coaches will say, coaching the kids is great as long as they didn't have parents. It'd be even better. Right? It's kind of complicated.
The joke is that, that you you wake up in a cold sweat and you dream about coaching in an orphanage. It's kind of like,
I've never heard that. I've never heard that.
Running joke, because, and listen, it's not, we're all, you're a hockey dad, and I'm a hockey dad, and we all want the best for our kids. And sometimes it's difficult to make a decision because it's your flesh and blood. It's much easier to do that when it's not, you know, your own family.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine, I can't remember his name now. I was coaching with John Tonelli, former Islander, and we played together at LA. And he was coaching a really good team, a U14 team. His son was on. It was going to be his last year before he went off to prep school. They were nationally ranked, I think like 5th or 6th in the country. And there's another coach coaching another team. We're sitting around one day chatting, and he says, I guess at like the preseason meeting with all the parents, he says, okay, here's the deal. So a magic bus is going to miraculously show up outside the hockey rink. And you're all going to get on the bus, and you won't know where you're going. You won't know why you get on the bus, but you're just going to follow the bus driver wherever it goes. And his meaning was that very often during the season, win or losing, there's the dads, well, not just the dads, but primarily the dads are all sitting around, and they come up with what the coach is doing wrong, and whether they know the game or not. And then everybody starts listening to that guy. Now it becomes this big movement that the coach needs to do this or the coach needs to do that. So this is this magic bus. And he says it's funny because all the parents at the start of the year are going, no, we won't get on the bus. We'll you're the coach. That's it. Doesn't matter. Coach for years. Inevitably, though, somewhere point during the season, he'll go to the parents. He goes, that magic bus just showed up and you're getting on it. Because don't you notice that too with parents that they'll decide that they know more, especially if the team's losing, but it isn't just limited losing. The parents feel like they know more about the game than anybody, and they're going to fix the problem, right?
Yeah, listen, it's not, it's become pretty normal in youth sports. So you're going to have opinions when you're watching games and things like that. But the one thing that for sure is that whatever it is, if it's school-based or youth sport-based, if the parents and the entity, whether it's the school or the sport or whatever, if everyone's on the same page, pulling in the same direction, the player or the student's going to benefit the most. And if you have disagreements or things like that, they're better to be dealt with, behind closed doors than in front of a child.
Yeah.
Because you're sending the kid mixed messages, and then, you get into areas that are not going to be healthy for the child. And that's, at the end of the day, that's why everybody's supposed to be involved with that.
Yeah, isn't that true, right? When they're driving home from the game early Sunday morning, got the donuts going and everything, and then the dad gets in the car with the boy and he starts criticizing the coach. Why did he do this? Why did he do that? And he's probably not even, he's more just having a conversation, right? So now that player, that young boy who looks to his father as, he respects him. If his father says so, then this is the way it is. Now the boy thinks, okay, this is reality.
Yeah, listen, you see examples, all the way up to the pros, like when coaches are asked about players, like they don't all handle it the same way. Yeah. Most of the guys aren't going to, air their guys out in public, but you could see different philosophies about how they're going to do that. Look, when you're a parent, you're going to have days where you're going to be thrilled and happy and love your kids like crazy. And then there's going to be days where you're upset because they did something that wasn't healthy for them. Right. It's the same thing in coaching. Like if you're involved and you care about your players, to think that every day is going to be, there are rough moments, but sometimes they're necessary to get to what you see in that person to get them to be their best version of themselves.
Isn't that true with young kids? They could be fantastic one day, and then the same kid comes to make the next day. It's like, what happened? He's just young kids. That's
and I know, you have a bunch of new habits that you started for yourself, and everything from getting up early in the morning to how you eat, and we goof around a lot of it, but you're very disciplined when it comes to those kinds of things. And I think with young players, young students, like young people, like. You want to try to get good habits as fast as you can get them, so you have the whole rest of your life to benefit from them. The longer you hold on to bad habits, the harder it is to change them.
Yeah, no kidding too. Yeah, here's a good point by our buddy Anthony Carlucci, the 24-hour rule. So I'm big on the 24-hour rule, and you can never break this 24-hour rule. So we say to the parents and the players at the start of the year, if there's ever some kind of a conflict or disagreement or whatever, especially right after the game, you have to wait for 24 hours before you can discuss it with the coach. And here's what happens too, though. So you say that. So we had an example. We were coaching I was helping coach the girls' high school team here in Greenwich. And we had 3 girls who were fantastic people, but they had a hard time. The coach wanted to be very disciplined. You had to show up for the game. We're in the tracksuit. You had to show up for the game at a certain time. And these 3 girls in particular were just always bending the rules. And again, they weren't bad people. It's just they needed to learn a lesson. So the captains came to us before one game, and they were complaining. We said, well, it's not fair to everybody else if these 3 girls are getting away with it, but the rest of the team's all following the rules. So we said, okay, we've got to do something. We sat back, made a decision. So we decided those 3 girls were not going to play in that game. Well, now, especially with cell phones, as soon as that decision is made, they're calling the mothers. And this one mother comes, if anybody knows Dorothy Hammer Ring, well, a lot of rings are the same way. There's a door at one end, and then there's a locker room on the side, and then there's a hallway walking between the ice. And she comes storming in. You could tell she was on a mission. And the head coach for the team was a sweet little, great coach, too. Fantastic coach, really into it, dedicated. She had never seen this before. And she was a smaller woman, and this woman comes storming. So I stepped in between the woman and the head coach, and I put my hand out. I said, 24-hour rule. Now, of course, the woman doesn't want to hear it at that point, right? She doesn't care about, well, no, I just need to talk right now. And I said, nope, 24 hours. This goes like 5 or 6 times. And finally, she gets the hint that we are not talking to her. And I turned around and looked at the poor head coach, and she had never seen it. She was just, her eyes were like, what was that all about? Like, because this mother, she loved her daughter, right? She thought she was going to come in and save the day. So it is pretty funny. And then inevitably by the next day, it may not agree with you, but they're calmed down a little bit more, right? So that's why I have the choice.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that's why the rule's there. Basically, it's like to say, like, so you're not responding emotionally. You have time to kind of digest everything and have a rational conversation, the same thing. Like, but when you're in the heat of the moment, like it's not good for anybody. It's not good for the parents, not good for the player, it's not good for the coach. So just that's kind of, I think, the purpose of it.
The other one too is the texting and emails. That always escalates things. Like I've said to coaches, do not respond. Some of you said they're looking for their pound of flesh, and they're braver on the text or the emails than they are face to face.
I mean, I try to do that in everyday life. Like, you can text like little things, but there's a conversation to be had. Like, there's just so much. You're sitting there saying to your friend or sitting there, like, well, how do they mean that? Like, because you can't, you're not hearing the voice. So, like, if I have something like that, I try to pick up the phone and call people and try to be, as direct as possible.
So that's a good question. You touched on it before. So if you're coaching a youth program, there's an independent from many schools, as opposed to coaching for a school. Are you required to? Because technically you're an employee of that school now, right? Are you required to respond in a certain fashion, or?
So if you are working within a school system, you are expected to respond if it's a reasonable request. If somebody is being, taking things to a different level and stuff like that, then you have to pass it. Like in the school system, you pass it to athletic director, pass it to administrators. If people are becoming like abusive and that kind of stuff, but you are expected. Listen, the same way. If one of your boys was having trouble in school and you sent a message out to a teacher, you would reasonably expect a response, a phone call, an email, something like that, or setting up some kind of meeting for
as long as you're professional, right? Professional and polite. If you start getting nasty, then
I think if it comes to a point where if people are not being cordial and stuff like that, then you could say, listen, I'm going to turn this over to my athletic director. I'm going to turn it over to, an administrator in the district, and they'll take over from here. The other part of that is, so it's like, you're talking about high school ages. Listen, most coaches don't want to get into conversations about playing time and those things for a bunch of reasons. I think the first reason really is like the player. We're trying to grow the players, and they come, into young men and young ladies. So there's nothing wrong with a player going to a coach and saying, "Coach, could I have a few minutes?" and then posing questions the right way, like, which would be to say, what do I need to do to play more? What do I need to do to get in the power play? What do I need to do to get a penalty kill? What do I need to do to get more of an opportunity? Like, those are good questions. Like, we encourage our players to do that.
That's a great point by you too. Like, the player should come in and talk to the coach, right? I think like the coach, for me, if a player comes in, obviously you can't do it when you're 6 or 7 years old, but if you start getting to be 12, 13, 14 years old, instead of having the parent come in, have the player come in. There's so much. Now I'm looking at that player and I'm going, wow, that's cool. I have respect for that player. He came in, didn't yell and scream at me, just like you said. He wants to know how he can get more ice time, how he can help the team more. So that's a great point. Yeah.
How can I get better? And I think if you do it consistently, it starts to become part of your culture, where players will feel more and more comfortable asking those questions.
Right.
Sometimes you laugh. Sometimes guys get really comfortable with it, and they ask a lot.
Yeah.
But there's honest conversations, and it leads to a lot of positive stuff. So you can, an example, you could have a player say, "Hey, meet me 15 minutes before our team film, and let's take some time together and look through some things." we have a need on our team for, say, we need another penalty killer. You know, is this something you feel like you can do? This is what we're looking for, and this could be an opportunity for you to get some more ice. Like sometimes players, knock themselves out of things unknowingly. We were talking about this. You and I have talked about this a bunch of times. Like your best players, and then the players you would have with hockey. Like who are the 5 that you want on the ice when your team's up a goal with a minute to go? Yep. The other night for the Rangers, right? Goudreau was one of those 5 guys. Like during the year, people like forgot, Barkley was part of the team, and then all of a sudden you see a guy, his value rise situationally. His coaches trust him, and then sure enough, like he rewarded him with an empty netter. But I think the point is that there's a lot of different things that you need during the course of a game, and if people are honest about it and you're willing to work at it, you should be able to create some opportunities for yourself.
That's a good point too. Like I tell kids all the time that I was never, and I'd love to tell you differently, but I was never the best player on any team I ever played on. I'd learned from growing up watching my father and grandfather at the farm to just show up and do your job every day. So so you're coaching a high school team. If you had a player like that isn't one of your best players, but he shows up consistently to practice, does his job on the ice, he's a leader. Now when let's say a college coach comes along, that's the message you're going to send to the college coach about who this player is. And now the coach says, okay, he's a good enough player, but he's also this great team player that I want on my team. So now you get up to the next level. And that's really for kids, like there's so much pressure to think, like you said, that you need to be the best player on the team or score the most goals or whatever. If you want to go up in your career in hockey, it's really just showing up and doing your job every day. And if you do that, then the coaches are always going to push you at the next level.
Yeah, it's like the difference between reality and perception, right? It's like, when a young kid comes home and like their parents or grandma's in the kitchen, they always ask the same 2 questions. Did you win and did you score?
Yeah.
And the way the young players are kind of getting brainwashed a little bit. But as you move up, and if you want to keep playing, then there's real things that coaches look at. If coaches are really recruiting a player at, on a higher level of travel, or in some cases like areas where you have higher levels of hockey, they're going to go and watch them in games, but you're going to go and watch them in practice too, and see how they interact with their teammates. Are they the first one on the ice? What's their work ethic like? Like those are real stuff. And a lot of our players think, well, I just got to score a whole bunch and it doesn't matter. I'm just going to keep shooting. It's like it's not an honest thing. It's not a real thing.
How many kids are on your high school teams?
We don't cut in our high school. So I like to keep a lot of players on a team. Usually 23, 24, 25, somewhere in that range.
And how many dress for each game?
We dress all the players, but sometimes you can create some problems for yourself too by keeping a lot of players. Right. If it's then obviously everybody can't play in games, but like there's a misconception that a coach likes a player more if they play them more, and the coach doesn't like the person who's not playing. And
you say doesn't like them on a personal level?
Yeah, like where it's like you go back to like Little League and stuff, like, oh, is the player playing more because the coach just personally likes them more? It's not. It's more like what you earn, and a lot of the players who aren't getting opportunities to play, they're working very hard in practice too. And inside our locker rooms, we're talking to our players. When you have opportunities in games to get these players in, if somebody makes a bad decision, like we've had a couple of instances where we had to address players because they made a bad decision and it kept other players from being able to get in the game. You take
bad penalties and stuff.
Yeah, if you take a bad penalty, you take a situation where now it's like you're killing a minor or a major penalty, and now you can't get these other players in the game. Those kinds of things we address, but we try to make every player know that they're important and make time to speak to every player. I think if there are coaches, and I'm not saying it from a mastery standpoint, I'm saying it from like making mistakes. And I talk about this a lot. Like I make lots of mistakes, but I try to learn from the mistakes. So I try to have a little checklist and talk to players. So we bust a lot of practice up. Like invite a player up on the way over, on the way back, and try to get those little conferences in, or in the locker room. You've been over there and stuff like that, where we try to just make sure you're touching base with a lot of players.
What I did when I was coaching the men's high school team several years ago, that was like 15 years ago, maybe longer. I always like to, I was coached by a lot of great coaches. My junior coach, Rick Kay, my college coach, Rick Conley, obviously Herb Brooks, Robbie Fatorik was a fantastic coach. And the little kind of mind games, like not the Mike Keenan kind of stuff. So one game we were coaching, good little player for us. Went out there and was just kind of, he's one of those teenage days where he was just kind of dogged. It wasn't giving every effort. So I pulled him off. I said, come on, you're better than that. Come on, you can do more than that. And so I put him right back on the ice with everything, and I pumped him up a little bit. He was worse when he went back. It just wasn't his day.
You did a good job.
Yeah, exactly. Great coaching.
That launched your career as a motivational speaker.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah. It was funny too. So everybody's seen the movie Miracle, where Herb Brooks, when they're in Norway, I think it was, at the end of the game, takes him out there again, skating it back and forth and throwing up a little bit. So the men's high school team was just, they had problems before. The coach before, he was getting paid money under the table by the parents and all this kinds of stuff. So there's no discipline. The bus would leave at whatever time they wanted to. So that was one thing that drove me nuts too. I told him, I said, listen, if the bus is leaving at 3 o'clock, it's leaving at 3 o'clock. If you're not on it, you're not playing. We had a few games there early where we were just like 5 or 6 guys because they thought I was bluffing. And then that got fixed pretty quick. But they had one game where they were awful, and it was bad. It was a discipline thing. You have bad nights. I said, okay, you guys want to act like that? We got 20 minutes ice time left. Once the game's over with, we'll see what you guys think. So I lined him up, did the old Herbie thing. I was standing out there with my shoes on and skating it back and forth. And I've realized since then, I would never do that again, because to me, fitness is an important part of a person's life. And if you relate fitness to some kind of a penalty, now you're teaching the wrong thing. The fitness should be a reward. Like, you want to be in shape, and that's one thing Herb Brooks really did good. We had this guy by the name of Jack Blatherwick, was with Herb at the Olympics here in New York, and he would set up a training program during the season. So there's no random bag skates, as we call it, because you weren't playing well. It was all timed out properly. Like, certain Mondays was conditioning. And I've really learned that, there's other ways to discipline the players, right? Like you said, again, part of the reason I asked was how many players you dress. You've got enough players on the bench that you can use the ice time as discipline for a guy that isn't playing well, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, you kind of learn, like you can get upset and yell and scream and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like every player understands when they're on the, if they're not playing, they understand that. You could get the same message across in a calmer fashion. But I also think that I'm not suggesting anybody should be belittling people and all that stuff. But every person is different, and every person responds to different things. I think you have to be responsible and mindful about what you're saying to people. Yeah. I think that's important, but I also think it's on the coach to know your players. Yeah. Like what you responded to would be something completely different than, say, what James Patrick would have responded to. Yeah. Or Barry Beck or any of those guys. It's like, that to me, that's the coach's job. And sometimes you have to be hard, but it doesn't mean that you're irresponsible, and it doesn't mean that you're not thinking about what you're saying before you're saying it. Yeah. You're being precise because that's what the person needs. Right. Same way a mother or a father has to be tough sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes they have to be loving. There's lots of different situations where we have to be mindful of that.
So, Ron, to answer your question, I do not believe in bag skates anymore. I used to think that was a way to discipline, because it was done to me many times too. And I don't think it hurt me by any means, but I think it's that. We want people, especially nowadays, that people sit in front of the computers. We want people to be excited about exercise, not feeling like it's some kind of bad punishment. And frankly, it doesn't work. I mean, I've told a funny story. Ted Sater, one of our Ranger coaches, we had played a bad game in Pittsburgh, I think it was the night before. We're supposed to have a day off the next day. So he gets on the bus, going to the airport. He says, okay, day off is canceled. Everybody at the rink at 10 o'clock, whatever it was. So we all get dressed, go on the ice. And myself and Bob Bruck and Ron Gresham were captains. And he warms up everybody, lines up the team along the red line, and he pulls out the 3 captains and says, all right, you guys didn't pass the puck enough last night, all the way down and back. And this goes on for about half an hour, skating us and sweating. And he's thinking that the rest of the guys are going to feel guilty because we're skating. And it was jacked up. The guys are dying laughing. They think it's funny, right? And we had this really nice young guy, Ramo Helmanen. He came to me after, didn't speak really good English. And he goes, Tommy, why only you 3 skate? So the whole logic of this Ted Sater's thing was like those kinds of you don't do that kind of stuff where it's kind of playing mind games, do you?
No, I don't. I didn't like them when I was playing, and I don't believe in that. I think probably I'm on the other side where I'm honest and pretty direct, and sometimes that's not always welcome. But listen, there's different ways to do it, and I'm not suggesting like there's just one way or that we always do right. We're human beings, like you're going to make mistakes, but I like for now, like the way you structure your practices, the players should be able to get their conditioning through the way you structure your practices.
Totally.
There's different ways of doing those things. I think now it's more about effort. Like when you're coming on, like, I mean, you've been over by our place, and like we'll tell our guys, like, you need to be lined up when the Zamboni gets on the ice, so that way we don't waste a minute.
Yeah. And
then we kind of talk about the value of a minute. And like a quick example would be like, let's say you're working your backhand. If you have enough pucks and you want to just off the boards for 1 minute and you have the pucks available, how many backhands could you get in a minute? So kid says like 50. Okay, fine. We're on the ice 3 times a week. That's 150. We've got it. So in a month, you'll have 600. You know, our season goes almost 4 months. It's 2,400 backhands. There's no way on God's earth, if you do that for a minute every time, that your backhand's not going to get better.
Oh, cool.
And then you see developmentally in hockey, like a lot of players don't have functional backhands. Functional meaning like I can take a pass on my backhand, I can make a pass on my backhand, I can get the puck, you know, forward or towards the net on my backhand. That's 1 minute. So we try to teach the value of what a minute is. I mean,
that's cool.
You know.
And you know what it also does for you mentally? Now you've given yourself a license to be confident with your backhand. So me, for killing penalties, I would go out there before practice and get out there myself with a bucket of pucks and practice my backhand, like to flip it out of the zone. And again, you're right. If you don't practice your backhand, you're just on your forehand so much, you don't have that ability, but you don't have the confidence either. So once I practiced all the time in a game, I just felt like, okay, I can do this, because it's a little bit of a risky play sometimes. If you don't get it out of the zone, then now the puck's coming back towards your goalie. So I felt so confident because I did that all the time. That's
right. And this is a speck in the universe we're talking about. It's one little thing, but it's an example of how significant it is. Like I've been to seminars with, you know, whatever, coaches of all levels, and some of these guys, even on as high as the junior level, and some NHL guys make rules on their penalty kill that they do not allow players to try to clear on a backhand. Because there's so many turnovers, because of the lack of development of your backhands. And then you flip that over and look at like, all right, who has one of the best backhands, like in the highest league in the world? And you go back and you look, and it's like a guy like Sidney Crosby, who's right. He's going to be he's an all-time great, but he has an all-time great work ethic, and he works relentlessly on these things. I mean, people were ready to retire him. The guy, I forget what he wound up with, but 40-something goals this year. He's on every significant play, and he almost carried, the Penguins by himself. Like it's crazy, but it speaks to his work ethic and how he uses his time. How, like, he's after practice, he's before practice. The model's out there for young players to look at if you're looking at the right stuff.
Yeah, and again, like we're talking, it's not just the skill part, right? It's that confidence. When he gets out there, he knows he's done the work. So he knows that he's got the right to be good out there because he has done the work. The other part of it was, too, that I really learned more about is like building the player's ability to say, okay, just because I can't do it now doesn't mean I won't be able to do it in a week or a month or a year or whatever, just by working on it. I use the example of if you're doing one-on-one drills, so with defensemen, you want them ideally to, when they're leaving the offensive zone, to be facing the player, not turning around, skating forward, and then pivot. Ideally, be good enough backward skaters that you keep the play in front of you the whole time, so you can read the play and know what's happening. So we would do things in practice, like we put the defenseman on his knees at the top of the circle, and then the forward would be in the corner, blow the whistle, and now the defenseman's got to get up and skate backwards, and he can't turn and pivot until he gets to the red line, right? And inevitably, they're going to get beat most of the time when they first try it, right? Because this is the act of getting up. Now you're delayed a little bit, and now you got to skate backwards. So typically the forward skating forward can skate faster than the defenseman skating backwards. So they would not be able to do it. And then we'd go away from that drill and then work on our backward skating, just standing still and getting that fast start going backwards, right? And no cheating. They can go backwards all the time. So do that for a couple of weeks. Then you go back to that original drill, and now all of a sudden the guys maybe they're almost getting the defenseman, right? But they're still getting beat a little bit, but they're better than they were before. Now you go away for a couple of weeks, you do work on the backward skating some more. Now you do it again. Now the defenseman can stop the forward. And now they're thinking, and I think it's good to remind them sometimes, guys, a month ago you couldn't do this. And you did it, you put the work in, and now you can do it. So now they're starting to say, wow, that's cool. And that's something that, first of all, it really builds the confidence in the coach, because now the coach has made me a better player, but it's also give them confidence in themselves, and now they know they can do something they couldn't do before. So I love that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And I think, again, like there's tools out there to use. Like I'm a big believer in being able to use film to help your players develop and things like that. So there's a, that's a
Okay, so I sort of interrupted there, but that's something that I really noticed. So like now on the bench, like so you mentioned Sidney Crosby, he's famous for this, getting out the iPad and looking at the play. I didn't like that. Like I thought, okay, that plays in the past. I want to know, we're getting ready for the next one. But I guess they can say, okay, if there's a trend going on out there, I want to know what that trend is and adjust for it. I wanted to concentrate so much on the next shift. I didn't want to think about the last shift. What do you think of that?
I just think it's applying it where it makes sense. Like some guys don't want that. Like I saw a Ranger game this year. I think Kreider took the iPad away from Zibanejad.
Yeah, that was last year. That was cool. Yeah.
He's just like, you're thinking too much.
Yeah.
But there's also players who you can explain it and all these things and they're not getting it, but then you show them like, look here, I'm going to pull the player. I'm going to try to pull him down next time. You go here. Okay, I got it. Like during a game where it's fast, I think for some guys there's an advantage to it. But I think more along the lines of like our coaches, like, are you filming even on younger levels? If you're using it the right way, are you filming your games? Are you filming your practices?
Right.
So I haven't met anybody. I mean, maybe you have. I haven't met anybody who suggests that you're going to be a different player in the game than practice. Like, you play the way you practice 99.9% of the time. So I think it's important to show players what practices look like. How are you coming prepared? Are you competing? Are you making the plays that you would in a game? Like you stop a player and they're like, well, it's just practice. But it's mental practice also for, getting mental reps for dealing with different situations.
I saw a video where somebody was talking. It's kind of unrelated to hockey, but I think it applies. Where they said sometimes you're going to go to school or you're in college and you have to take a class like algebra or something. And you think, well, I'm never going to use algebra. Why am I learning algebra? He said, well, it isn't all about learning the algebra. It's training your brain to learn some more. And I never would have understood that. Like this journey I've been on with the True Good Life, I really learned to learn more. And it doesn't matter what it is, just could be random stuff. But now you're training your brain. I'm sure you do too. Like, you want your body to be in shape. So you eat good foods, you train. Same thing with your mind, right? Put good thoughts in your mind, train your brain more. So really, because I was one of those peers like in school, like, I'm going to play hockey. What do I need to learn this stuff for? But you realize, you train your brain the same way you train your body.
Because it's fast and like what like it's almost like when you're too tired to think, your body's it's like muscle memory is going to kick in and practicing those correct things. Like, so I'll give you an example. Last round with the Rangers in Carolina, like you watched Carolina, like it was game 5 and it was really loading up the blue line. So they're kind of forcing the Rangers to dump the puck, right? So the Rangers like started rimming the puck, but Anderson was getting out, anticipating the rims, and then Carolina was turning the puck over, going the other way real fast because they didn't really have anywhere to go. You know what I mean? It's like if we try to skate through these guys, the blue line, we're going to turn the puck over. If we rim the puck, basically we're giving up possession. So now what? So you need to like look through those things. So it's like, the next step, like what was going to be the next move. And then you saw the next game, the Rangers kind of overloaded the strong side. So in other words, like one player is approaching the blue line, and then they had one go behind him, almost like you would like a chip and chase kind of thing. And that's kind of how they remedied that part. But without film, without being able to show guys, and it's hard to move forward. And obviously, it's a lot simpler concepts with younger players. But I think if you show them in small doses, you could be effective.
Yeah. One thing that's kind of a pet peeve of mine too, and it even happens at the NHL level, when people go to dump the puck, and particularly defensemen, they wait until they get to the blue line. That means the 3 forwards now are stopped at the blue line. Now they have to get going again to get in, and obviously the defensemen are going to get it. So it's better to wait till you get to the red line so your forwards are moving. Now they don't have to get going again. It's amazing watching it. And I made the same mistake myself when we played, but it's just a simple little play there.
Yeah. And listen, I think there's other things too. It's like that's also sometimes why people pick at coaches who are constantly changing their line combinations and things like that, because it inhibits your ability to anticipate what your teammate's going to do. So like if I know you, I'm like, all right, I know when Tom gets a step and a half over the red line, it's going. I can get a jump. I could start rather than waiting. I don't know when he's sending it. I'm waiting, and now I'm getting beat to the puck.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. You know, so if you got a player on your team, well, I'll use it as a different example. So I think the best coaching, put it this way, is when the coach has taught the players how to react instinctively instead of listening to trying to remember, okay, what did the coach want me to do? So when you're out there on the ice and you've got to make a decision, if you're now as a player stopping and thinking, okay, what does coach want me to do? By the time you've thought that process through, the play's over with, right? So the best coaching is to coach them so that they know they don't have to think about what you wanted. They know how you want the game to be played, and then they make the decision out there by themselves, knowing full well that they're going to make mistakes sometimes, right? You're not going to be perfect, or the play just might not work out the way you want it to.
Yeah. I don't know if this is a good analogy, but like when we were kids in elementary school, we used to go to art class, and you do all these colors underneath, and then we paint the picture in black, and then you would take like, I don't know, some kind of like sculpting tool, and then you would uncover the colors that were underneath it.
Oh, okay.
I feel like that's your things that are there that are getting covered up. So what I mean by that is, like, say for example, let's use line changes. So like you look at your bench and look at line changes, and on younger levels, there's a lot that could go wrong with line changes. You'll see some coaches on some levels won't change on the fly because it becomes too frantic. They wait for whistles, which could lead to lots of things that aren't good.
Yeah.
How a player enters the ice, like you'd be amazed, and you see it all the way up to the highest level, like the sticks in the air. Sometimes, like you catch guys where the gloves aren't on. You won't see players trying to take advantage of the other team's poor changes or what side of the ice you're on, like second period especially. And like I think those things have to be coached. They don't know what they're missing because they've never, in some cases, never been able to take advantage of that. But certain players do have it, and that's why you'll see certain players will get more breakaways. Certain players will be more opportunistic because they're anticipating what's going to happen. It's the same kid as like you're dropping the puck as a coach in practice. The player's watching your hand like they would a referee in a game, and they're the first one on the loose puck drill. They're getting loose pucks all the time. How does he do that?
Right.
And that's.
Isn't it true, like having the hockey smarts, right? Wayne Gretzky was unbelievable. He would do things like if somebody's making a slow change, like even at the NHL level, it always bothered me. Guys are taking their time getting to the bench. And now, obviously, everybody's got to wait for him. So Wayne, if the guys are all slow to the bench, he'd shoot the puck right into the door, like on the ice, but near the door where those guys are changing. And it's an automatic 2 minute on the ice. And it's amazing how some guys have got that hockey smarts. And part of it is, too, is that you're not always going to be totally mentally sharp. And John Muckler, I once said that if you can get a guy and a team to be their best 75% of the time, that's pretty good. Because remember, you're playing 80 regular season games. Well, 80 when I played, 82 now, the preseason games, playoff games. So, most times you're over 100 games, and you're not always going to be on. But it's amazing how some guys are on a lot more than others when it comes to the mental sharpness.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's why there's a responsibility for coaches, whatever level you're coaching on, is to make sure that to the best of your ability that you're trying to teach the right things at the right level.
Right.
I'm not trying to teach the neutral zone trap to 8-year-olds.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
That sort of stuff, and making sure that you're paying attention to your core values, like showing up prepared, working hard. Like we ask our players too, like at some point, same in school, like who's packing your bag? Like, are you packing your bag? Is someone else packing your bag? We ask our students that question. And when are you packing your bag? Are you packing it the night before? Are you trying to pack it the morning before?
Isn't that true? Like as early as possible, get the kid to pack his own bag, carry his own bag, do his own skates up. I know that parents love their kids. They want to be there for them, but you're not helping them. They got to do it themselves.
It's painful and embarrassing to show up to a rink and say, "All right, my kid forgot his stick, forgot his skates." Like, it's embarrassing and it's tough, but it only probably happened once.
Yeah.
If it does. But the other point, I think, for parents too, it's like, you'll have a coach to say, "Listen, I'd like the kids there 45 minutes before, an hour before. Why do we need to be there?" So you just want a few minutes where you can just have the full attention of your players, so you can get your one or two messages across. And a lot of times kids are running in. It's frantic. They're coming from different things, and it's part of youth sports. But when you have the opportunity to get there earlier, it's like what you said about confidence. I packed my bag last night. I know I'm good. And then, coach, you have my full attention here, rather than like, where's my skate? Where's my laces? Where's my neck guard? They're not listening to much of what you're saying.
That's another big thing too. To me, like you said, everybody's got busy schedules. Parents got to drop them off at the rink, all that kinds of stuff. Maybe leave work, but there's always that. Like I say to kids, especially teenage kids in the high school, listen. If you're going to be late for some reason, or if you have to miss practice because of you do homework, whatever it is, okay, that's fine. But you've got to call me and talk to me and tell me that you don't have your parents call me. You call me and tell me in advance. Don't show up late and then give me the excuse. If you know you're going to be late, call me in advance, right?
Yeah, and I think it's just about being upfront too with like what you want for the players. We want you to be young adults here, and these are the expectations and those kinds of things. And yeah, I think it's good. I mean, we're not there to produce NHL players. We're trying to make people better for the experience and try to help them use the sport to help them be more productive in life. It goes more to like your definition of like what you feel winning is now. It's like when I first started coaching, winning was just like scoreboard. Now it's like look and see where your players are, what they're doing in 10 years after they graduate high school. And you'll know if you had, a little tiny piece in that.
That's true, isn't it? Like, it's really rewarding when you get a kid later on, like 10, 15 years down the road after you coach him and comes and he doesn't even have to say anything. He's just a successful person. I think a guy, I have no problem using his name because we're still friends. Max Como. Great guy. Him and his father, Rich Como, and I are friends as well. And Max, he was always getting penalties. They had a rule. I think this is the rule that if you got 5 penalties in a game, you missed the rest of that game and the next game. I believe that's what the rule was. So Max was always getting like 4 or 5, 3 or 4 penalties. But to me, I loved him because he was always sticking up for his teammates. He was a bigger kid. So all the parents were like, well, why do you keep playing him? He's always getting a young, wild kid. He doesn't know how to do things properly, but his heart's in the right place. And it was one of the funniest moments I ever had coaching. So he got 4 penalties. I sat him on the bench. Says, Max, I can't play anymore. You're going to get another penalty. So he took his glove off, put it on the end of his stick, and made it so the middle finger on the glove was sticking up in the air. Then the referee skated by, sticks it in the referee's face. The referee looked at me and we both started just dying laughing. He said, Tommy, I've got to throw him out. I said, I know, but it's still funny. And we were talking about it after. So that's the kind of kid he was. Ultimately, he getting some little troubles off the ice as well. Ultimately went in the Army. And the Army recruiter, I guess, was out in California and had been a big Kings fan when I was playing. And he was asking, there's a bunch of kids asking for a stick. And he told Max a story that I wouldn't give him the stick until I made him say please and thank you. And he never forgot that. And so when he met Max and Max put my name down as one of the references, the guy goes, Tom Laidlaw, the former King. And so he told him that story and Max goes, yep, that's Laidlaw right there. That's the way he does things. So it was, and then he's gone off now running his own business. So, and I'm not saying I made him that way, but I'd like to think you have a part in it, right? That you taught him some discipline and everything. So yeah, it is rewarding that it happens.
There are things that you get these things over time. I got a letter from a player who played for me a long time ago, and he's in a band, a professional band in Australia. It was a great letter. And he was a kid that I had to remove him from our team because he had done something that suggested I should remove him from the team.
Oh, okay.
But he said that basically he thanked me for doing that. He said it really kind of changed.
Isn't that amazing, right? You've done something to him that he probably didn't like at the time, but if you change.
Well, I didn't like it either. It's you feel like that's the other thing. Like parents should understand too. It's like when a player fails in some way, whether it's behavior or academics, something like that. If you're as a coach, if you have to discipline them, and in the rare cases where you have to remove a person from the team, like you feel like a failure also.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Like you feel like you failed also. It's not a good feeling. And people think like, well, that guy wasn't playing so much for you. Like, what's the big deal? It's like, you're still like, it doesn't equate in your responsibility or how you feel about it. It's one of the worst feelings you have as a coach.
Yeah, you're right too, because that's the thing you learn from coaches so long. It's making the difference in the kid's life through the game of hockey, right? Like you said, most of these kids, not any at all. Well, none at all. But not many kids are going to go off the NHL. Not many kids are going to get college scholarships. I do say to the kids though that their dream should be to play in the National Hockey League, but knowing full well the chances are far greater that you won't do that. But to me, it's that process, like the pursuit of that goal, right? And now, okay, it doesn't work out, but now you've learned how to work. Now you've learned how to make yourself better. And that now goes for your personal life, your business career. So yeah, it's important.
Yeah. I mean, our spirit is built on dreams. Like whatever you did, like as a kid, like you'd go out, right? You make believe you're playing in the Stanley Cup finals. It was baseball. You make believe you're the relief pitcher coming out of the bullpen and you go throw like a little strike box you set up somewhere. like your whole spirit is built on the dreams. But I also think that you should know what you're dealing with. Like the other day, I was looking through the transfer portal for college hockey.
Oh yeah.
And you see like the notes, the transfers, and you're talking about the 1 or 2 percenters in our country, the best players, best American players in our country, and they're transferring because either they didn't fit where they were, or they weren't playing, or this. Like you're talking about different levels of competition. You're talking about our sport is international. You're seeing players come from other countries at as early as ages 11 or 12 now, where they're going to these, high-powered youth organizations. Like there's a lot that's going on, whether you like it or not. But people should be aware.
And how does that portal work? Do you have to like make an application, so to speak, to transfer schools?
I think like it's like a declaration like that you have to go into, and some some places will go like this to you, like you've got a scholarship to go here, you can continue to come to the school, but you're not going to play here.
Okay, gotcha.
And then, you know what I mean? So
okay, so just here's a good point. I should do this more often. One of our listeners, Scott Cooper. So Gary Dworkowitz is the coach of the North Rockland High School team. Won a state or section championship a few years ago. Great person too. Like he does a lot of stuff in the community, a lot of stuff with the Rangers program. Learned to skate. That's how I got to know Gary. And now I can't get rid of him.
I feel like that also. I did, like I coached probably about 30 years now and a bunch of different stuff, and like I said, make tons of mistakes. But it's kind of honestly why I'm friends with guys like Tom. Like just the idea of I want to be around people who want to get better. Yeah. And
yeah, we're all like Stefan Matteau and I've become very good friends.
That's awesome. Same thing. We do his anti-bullying program up here, and it's very humbling to see guys who have achieved on such a high level that they truly just want to be better. So kind of
and Steph's a great example for the kids too, because here's a guy that scored arguably not the best goal in the history of the NHL. Bobby Orr probably got that one, but as far as the New York Rangers go, Stefan Matteau scored the overtime goal to send the Rangers to the finals in 1994 to beat the Devils. And so when people mention his name, he's legendary. But still, he talks about how he has anxieties and everything, and stuff. That he really doubted himself a lot. So he really carries himself great too. He's funny. He's got a beautiful wife, Sue, and she's very intelligent too. And she helps him with his career off the ice. But we were in Vegas. They flew a bunch of guys trying to thank us for the alumni stuff we were doing. And so Adam Graves is there, Dan Langdon, the wives are there, and everything. So we're all getting in the elevator to go up to the suite to watch the game. And this Ranger fan, a couple got in. You could tell they're really nervous. They realized who they're with and everything. And so hey, how you doing? Nice to meet you a little bit. And the door didn't open right, or didn't close right away or something. So Steph says, sir, ma'am, you're going to have to get off the elevator. And so the guy now is panicked because he thinks he's got Steph mad at him. And so he goes like sheepishly to get off the elevator. And Steph waited for like 5 seconds. And then he grabbed him by the collar. He says, get back in here. So he was joking around the whole time. So it was very funny. He was really good the way he did it too, because he acted really serious. And it's quiet in the elevator. We're all looking like, Steph, are you really doing this? And he did. So he's a good man. Yeah,
he's a terrific human being, and like he's doing amazing things in his program and his classes. Like we walked into a class last week, and there was a few students who had happened to lost one of their mom or their dad over the last 2 years, and it just came up in conversation, like these kinds of things that come into play, and how he's helping kids. Yeah. It's a great example for people to follow.
Yeah, he's a great example too, how he's made himself better, and by doing that, he's helped a lot of other people too. So he's a good man. He's funny. We got to be buddies. I really like him a lot.
Yeah. I was saying too, like for the gentleman was asking about like what my background stuff, like just like I've done 10 or 11 years now, like doing Ranger youth stuff, and I know Dennis is on, and he's doing it, but the value really is like the people that you meet and the examples you get to follow. I've learned stuff from all these guys, different capacities. During COVID, Tom's one of the guys I talked to the most, and just about conversations about, getting better and doing things. And, I'm not pumping his tires, but he was like, he's a good human, and he's there when you need him. And it makes you look harder at yourself, and how, if you're going to be someone who's out in front of kids and things like that, you have a responsibility to be the best version of yourself as well.
Yeah, isn't that true? I've really learned that too. Yeah, and I'm not critical of anybody when I say this. I've just learned the person doesn't have to be a bad person, but you get to choose who you want in your life, right? You don't have to be around just because my example. So if I played with a guy, 40 years ago, if he now doesn't fit into my lifestyle, again, I'm not mad at him. I don't hate him. That doesn't mean he's a bad person. But you get to choose who you want. Like, again, it's all positive thoughts for me. I don't want to be sitting around whining and complaining about stuff. And some guys, that's who they are. Again, not bad people. But I think that's really important. Like, Gary and I's case, you got to be friends. Mark Puttenvink and I have got to be friends during the pandemic and everything. And again, you don't get me, you just remove other people from your life that just don't fit in. And I think that's really important for your mental health.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's like embarrassing the amount of like opportunities and things that I've gotten to learn from other people just by being around watching them. I watched Mark Messier in one of our camps. We had his youngest son, Douglas, in there. And for the people who have young kids playing, like you help them get dressed when they're younger, when they're mites and stuff like that. And I watched him help his son get dressed, but he didn't touch a piece of equipment.
Oh,
he just talked him all the way through it.
That's cool. I like
Start
that.
to finish, like tremendous patience, spoke very softly. And like that should have been a video that like USA Hockey should have been using to show parents like how you help your child and then you're moving them forward and stuff like that. But just
isn't that true? We did a podcast, the Full Change podcast, that you can listen to on all podcast platforms. And we had Jim Kite on, a fantastic guy. I knew he had a hearing problem. I didn't know, like, he's legally deaf. So when we did the show, like, I have my microphone up. They teach you to have it right close to your mouth. I had to put the microphone down because he was reading my lips when we were doing the show. And he was fantastic talking. His mother was a great example. So he called it being a snowplow parent, where you try to clear away all the problems for the kid so he doesn't have to fight through anything. Like Mark doing this with his son, he didn't do it for him. He showed him how to do it. So now the son learned how to put his own equipment on. But Jim Kite would talk about I guess he had 3 or 4 brothers. I think they were deaf as well. And I think his father may have been. The mother was not. And she didn't baby them. She would say to him, listen, you're not going to go through life like you've got a handicap. You're going to go through life as a normal human being. So, when people who can't hear properly when they speak, it doesn't always come out clearly, the words. So she would force them to sit at the table for hours for their dinner and force them to speak properly. Like if they were slurring a word or whatever it was, no, they're not going to talk like that. You're going to say it properly. So again, she didn't baby them. She forced them. And I think he's teaching classes at the university and everything, and had a fantastic career as a player. And they said, how do you play in the National Hockey League but not here, right? Think of all the situations. You're going back to the defenseman, you're going back to get the puck. So he's a really, really like pleasantly surprised what a human being he was. And again, he really credited his mother with a lot of it by not babying her. And again, I use that as an example because the same thing with the kids. Mark Messier isn't helping his son by putting the equipment on. He wants his son to learn for himself, right? And that's a great example. That's cool.
Yeah, there's a lot of good humans. A guy like Chris Kreider, he had like an epic third period there last week.
Yeah,
in team, but it's like the years we do summer camp and stuff like that. He was as good as any of the current players on the ice with the kids. He's the guy he'd stay for the duration of sessions out there.
Yeah.
And
he is good. Yeah.
Yeah, he's great. And he really cares about the kids. And
the press conference after him and Trocheck were up there. And if you watch Kreider in the press conference, if he's done something great, he's very humble. He doesn't like to talk about himself, which I love. So the reporter asked him, somebody was telling us that in between the second and third period, you told everybody in the locker room that you're going to get one, meaning get a goal. And Chris was kind of deflecting the question. He didn't want to go into it. And Trocheck listened to him for a while. You look at the smile on his face start to grow. And he paused and he says, listen, you said it. You did. And it was pretty funny because Kreider started laughing because he didn't really want to put all it on his shoulders.
Yeah. He's like, we had one time where he's like, basically, are we good? And he's skating up the ice. I'm like, God, can you just go, be good for around? Like, go out there and have some fun, trip a couple of guys, whatever.
Yeah.
And he just made a U-turn, went up, scooped 2 kids up, threw them on his shoulders.
Yeah.
And,
he's good too. If you ever see it, a lot of games that have young kids sitting on the bench from certain hockey programs during the warm-ups. They obviously have got to wear helmets a little bit, but he always comes by and he stands there for a bit and kind of gets their attention's not on him anymore. And gets a water bottle and starts squirting them. And the kids, imagine what the kids are thinking, right? They're sitting in Madison Square Garden on the bench of the Rangers. And here's Chris Kreider, one of the best players that ever played for the Rangers, squirting water bottles. The experience for them was unbelievable. So,
yeah, but it's funny, before the interactions, you look at him and it's like, God, he has a tremendous skill set and
Yeah.
people would want to see that skill set on display all the time, and people are critical, right?
Yeah.
But then you see that he's such a good human,
Yeah.
and like you root for him differently because he's a good person, and he's the kind of guy that you want your kids to be around.
He's pretty funny too, and I think he set me up for this. We did an event down at Fort Pitt, down in the city. There's a firehouse and a police station together, and we were going to do like a ball hockey thing outside the fire department against the police. And the day before, a police officer was shot and killed. So the police officers obviously want to be out looking like they were having fun. So we went into the facility. It was really a somber, like not just because of the shooting, but all the stuff that's been said about the police and the whole bit. So it was actually a great event, and that we hope we cheered them up a little bit. But Chris and I were there together, and we got talking. He started telling me how he taught himself Russian, and that when the Russian players would come in, he would act as the translator, but he would tell the coaches something different than what the players had actually said. And he would laugh about this and everything. So okay, that's fine. So years go by. I hadn't seen him again. I'm going around to events, just like the conversation we're having now. And I said, oh yeah, he's a funny guy. He taught himself Russian a little bit. So I'm going on for years telling everybody that we're talking about Chris Kreider, this story. I saw him, I guess last year at the golf tournament. Him and Henrik Lundqvist are driving around in the golf cart. And so a bunch of people standing around, and I tell the story about the Russian stuff. And he looks at me and goes, I don't know how to speak Russian. He's setting me up. And when he told me, I was like he was, I guess he used car sales or something. Like he really knew what he was talking about. And I'm assuming he set me up for me. I don't know whatever it was. So I told everybody in the world that you're Russian. So he's got a good sense of humor too. He's a good guy.
Yeah. Easy to root for.
Yeah. Good. Well, we're going to do this show again. This is Gary Dworkowicz, coach of the North Rockland high school hockey team. He coaches football as well, right? You coach football too?
Yep. Coach football for about the same amount of time. And that was that was the best class I ever took. Playing high school football was the best class I ever took in my life.
There you go. Good. And then you also coach the youth program in Rockland County too, correct?
I just do like clinics and stuff like where we are in North Rockland. We're a small little area. So I have a program to give kids an opportunity to get involved in the sport. So we've been, been successful in terms of opening up sport to people and that kind of thing, and just giving them an opportunity. So there's a lot of, spend a lot of time on that.
Over to Sportorama. Dave Silk and I went over to Sportorama years ago. Must be like 40 years ago from opening. This is back in the day. We'd had a few beers we went over there, so that was not we've grown up a little bit since then. All right, so we'll do this show every 4 weeks at 10 o'clock on Tuesday. Gary and I will particularly talk about coaching hockey, but it won't be limited to that. It's just coaching in general and the difference in you can make in a young person's life. We have both learned that, and I learned from, Gary did too, but for me, I look back now at some of the coaches and the difference they made in my life. Again, they were teaching me hockey things, but they really taught me a lot about life too. So pretty important topic to us. Again, 988 hotline, suicide hotline, and mental health hotline, the shoulder check program. Gary is actually very involved in that. What is it, Rob Thorson that runs that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Gary's actually nice enough. They were playing a game over in White Plains. So he contacted the White Plains coach and Rob Thorson, who he was the father of a young boy that took his own life up in Darien, Connecticut a couple years ago. So he started this project, Shoulder Check. It's meant to, obviously, in the hockey terms, that you're checking somebody with the shoulder, but it also means if you're going up to somebody, you put your hand on the shoulder and say, are you okay? I'm here for you, and all that stuff. So Gary played a big role in that as well. So good man. He's got nice hair too. I think I like his hair.
Yeah. We both, barbershop quartet.
It is funny when I'll be at the gym or something like that. A bald guy go back and I go, hey, nice hairdo. And at first they're looking at me like, what? What's your problem?
Yeah. Well, just like the quick thing with that, a lot of young people are going through anxiety, and you just never know. So it's a pretty important responsibility for anyone, adults and children, to checking on people and make sure they're doing well. So we did, get together with the White Plains folks, and Rob orchestrated that. I thought it was a positive, and you want to be there for our young people when they need us.
Yep, definitely. All right, everybody, have a fantastic, what is today? Today's Tuesday, so I'll see everybody on Thursday for the Thursday show. And then again, in another 4 weeks, we'll do the show again. We may pick it up and do it every 2 weeks, but right now it's every 4 weeks we'll do it. So again, thank you very much, Gary, for coming on. You're a fantastic human being. Again, you're fantastic.
Thank you. I'm working progress.
All right, everybody. See you.
Bye, guys.